The Hamburger Boat. A Dream of America.
I had a funny picture in my sleep, like a cartoon. In my dream, I was so sad because nobody seemed to pay any attention to what was going on. Everybody was doing their own thing, and they didn't seem to notice everything was going wrong. Then there was this big toy airplane made out of wood, and the Russian president was standing like a little boy in knee pants underneath the wing between the fuselage and one of the big motors on a sort of a platform like he was one of the mechanics or the ground crew. The plane was an American plane, another one of the president's toys. All of a sudden it roared and took off and left the Russian president just standing there surprised. There seemed to be some kind of big emergency going on because nobody had any lights. Maybe that plane symbolized that America's going to strike first, what they call a preemptive strike. I mean, it was all like they were being so silly. Little boys playing games, war games. It made me feel so sad that everybody was acting so bad. Everybody seemed to be too busy playing their own games. The cook and someone else on one of the boats were fighting over this little piece of meat. Like meat was real scarce. Yet, as I walked along the pier and peered down at each one of these boats like yachts, even though they didn't have any lights, they were all cooking hamburgers. I thought, well, that's just like the Americans. It wouldn't matter if there was an international war going on. A great emergency, it wouldn't matter if there weren't any lights or water. They would still be determined to get their hamburgers. And it all made me feel so sad, because it seemed like nobody cared about anything that was really important. Everybody was just selfishly doing their own thing, cooking their hamburgers. And it seemed like they couldn't have cared less if the whole world went to hell. I felt so bad I was on the verge of tears. I didn't want anybody to see me crying, so I ran into the back end of the boat, into this sort of a covered afterdeck that still had 2 light bulbs burning, hanging there on strings. I felt like I was just ready to burst into tears and that I must unscrew these 2 bulbs before anybody saw me crying. I felt, I've got to put out the lights. Just then you came rushing in and said, "You can't do that, honey. You can't put out the lights just because you're crying and feeling bad. People still need that light. People on the boat still need the light." I was just reaching up to unscrew the bulbs when you ran in and took me in your arms to comfort me. And that made me feel better. You were loving and kissing me and petting my hair and telling me not to worry, like you so often do. Then we were finding our way back up this muddy road in the dark and the cold, like we were trying to get somewhere, but I can't remember where it was. But it was like we were leaving the scene of all the boats and all the people that weren't paying any attention anyhow. You had me by the hand, and we were walking hand in hand, and I was telling you to watch out for the mud puddles and telling you where to step and leading you along. And it seemed like I was much happier again for some reason. So I don't even know why I'm crying now. We were going up this road towards some sunshine, and we were happy again. We were taking a walk again, just like old times, enjoying the fresh air and exercise and being together again, even if we had to leave everybody else behind. Because it didn't seem like they were interested anyhow, just playing games and fighting over the meat and cooking their hamburgers. Nobody really seemed to care what was happening. Everybody was living on their own little boats, so selfishly, and didn't care what was happening to anybody else. They just didn't want anybody to rock the boat. They just wanted to keep things like they were. It was kind of funny about the world politicians and war makers being pictured like foolish little boys fighting over their toys. That was so funny when the little American president grabbed that rocket back from the Russian president and said, "You guys can give up your rockets if you want to, but I'm not giving up any of mine, not one." And he ran back and stuck it back in its hole. Isn't that typical? All those Americans were fighting over the meat and still cooking their hamburgers even after the lights went out. It sure reminds me of the Americans. No matter what happened, they still had to have their hamburgers. The only light was on the boat where we were. But even on our boat, everybody was so busy, too busy to pay any attention. Even on our boat, where we still had a little light left, everybody was so busy they weren't even paying attention to what I was trying to tell them. That's unusual because they usually seem to be interested in what I have to say. It was like there was a big emergency happening and the lights were out and it seemed like there was a war going on or something. They seemed to be more interested in cooking their hamburgers, even if they had to cook them in the dark. But the people weren't paying any attention to what was going on any more than they had to. And I was trying to warn them and tell them, but they just didn't want to be bothered. It made me so sad I wanted to cry. So we finally gave up and walked out. We're going to go on to the light of a brighter day and leave all this mess behind. The cold and the dark and the rain with all their fighting and fussing and feuding and warring. We're going to keep on following the Lord and climbing the hill until we find that peaceful, happy, sunny valley of His light and love, where we'll start all over again if we have to, in a new day, a new land, and a new kingdom. Praise the Lord. That great big card, by the way, was like a navigational chart. Just about the same size, too. It was like I was the captain, but apparently I couldn't interest anybody in sailing. All the ships were tied up to the dock, nice and secure, and nobody was going anywhere, just busy cooking hamburgers. I wonder if anybody else got off the Hamburger Boat and followed us up the hill toward that brighter day ahead. Do you suppose they did? I hope so, don't you? God bless you.